I would like to have it's not entirely a non sequitur, but it's an advanced feature that isn't necessarily dependent on Premiere, but is certainly something a Premiere user would likely consider, which is downloading applications or getting access to application from the Google App Marketplace. And if you've ever used a smartphone and or even if you ever use a computer at all, you're familiar with downloading and gaining access to and paying for and using applications. And the marketplace, which I'll just go ahead and pull up, the Google Apps Marketplace is like an app store. Hold on. For Google Apps. But instead of using Windows or OS X or a smartphone operating system to run on, the marketplace uses Google Apps as a kind of operating system. And from the perspective of developers, there are a whole bunch of tools that Google makes available through something called the App Engine that make it easy to pull together powerful applications that use Google's programming interfaces and all sorts of features of the Google Apps ecosystem, and perhaps most notably that reside primarily or entirely in the cloud. And from your perspective, if you ever thought, gosh, Gmail is nice, Google Calendar is nice, it's great to have all of these different features that we're accustomed to hosting on our individual computers, but using them in the cloud, wouldn't it be nice if all of our software could somehow be replicated in the cloud? If you've ever thought that, then the Google Apps Marketplace is the answer. Google Apps Marketplace is still, it's not like the Apple App Store where there's just this breathtakingly enormous diversity of applications. There's pretty much an application that does everything, but there aren't 50 applications that do everything inside of the Google Apps Marketplace. But generally, you can find, certainly for core business software, you can find replacement versions in the marketplace. And there are a number of it's worth looking around to see all the different types of software. You can very easily browse. You can see the different categories they have here. And one of the pieces of software that I just wanted to show you in order to help you run through the marketplace is general ledger software. And any sort of going concern is going to have a piece of software like QuickBooks that it uses to manage its cash flow and its accounts receivable and its assets and inventories and all those types of businessy things. And there's actually quite a few different solutions within the marketplace that would allow you to walk away from those locally hosted versions of the application and migrate into the cloud. So if I type in accounting as a search term in the marketplace, I can see that there are at least 10 different applications that have the word accounting in their descriptions. I'll just go ahead and click on one. This is the one that I'm kind of familiar with, which is Yendo. I'm not that familiar with it, but I'm kind of familiar with it. Many of the apps marketplace applications are not free, and in fact, the $26 per month for 5 users is actually, for Yendo, is actually kind of comparable to the cost of Google Apps. But most of them have free for one user versions, because typically if you're going to be installing these programs and running them inside of Google Apps, you're in a collaborative environment. So there's, it's a good business sense for Yendo to offer a single user version for free. Before I install it, there's a few points that I want to, and I keep saying install, which is really sort of a rich application kind of terminology, because I'm not, downloading it from a DVD and running a setup file on my computer. I'm actually just getting access to it and linking it to my Google Apps account. That's really what we're metaphorically doing when we install it. I want to sort of draw your attention to a couple of security issues. And they're not necessarily problems at all, but it's just something that you should be mindful of. When you set up a Google Apps installation from scratch, then you have probably thought through, especially if what you're doing is important, you have thought through this significance of entrusting Google with your data, your emails, your calendar, your documents, and so forth. And you've come to the conclusion that, yes, the cost benefit of letting Google host this in terms of trust is worth it, and we'll go with Google Apps. When you use an application from the Google Apps marketplace, you will need to go through that process again in regards to any vendor that sells the application that you are thinking about installing. So, because Google Apps is built on, because these individual products are built on top of Google Apps and integrated with your, Google Apps installation, then generally they will have access to the data in your Google Apps account. So, Yendo is a company that appears to be in Dublin, Ireland, and presumably they have a reputation and a track record and would in fact be people that I could trust if I'd done my due diligence and thought through it in terms of allowing them to store my accounting software. And accounting software is actually a pretty good example of that. You don't necessarily want another vendor to have access to all of the books for your organization unless you trust them, and of course, we have to have trust in order to be able to do things. And so I'm not, and many of them are trustworthy, but not all of them necessarily are 100% trustworthy. Do your due diligence. And of course, as with anything, especially some stuff that you buy online, you can take a look at the customer reviews, and the 17 reviews for Yendo all appear to be averaged out to 5-star, and people are saying things like they enjoy the customer support and so forth, and hopefully most of these are written by people who work somewhere besides Yendo. I can say as somebody who has products online that the temptation is there to write nice reviews, so use your best judgment. But Yendo appears to be a pretty solid Google Apps application, and I think it's pretty neat, and I've played around with it before. We're not going to do a tutorial on Yendo, but I'm going to go ahead and add it to my account. And in fact, it doesn't look like I'm signed in here. I'm going to just click on sign in. I actually have 2 Google accounts running, both Coffee Kooks and michaelmelton.net, and this is actually kind of neat. Google knows that I have these 2 accounts running, and it gives me the choice of which one I want to go with when I'm looking around inside the marketplace. I clicked on coffeekooks.com, and you can always look in the sort of top center to see the domain name and the username of whatever application you happen to be using inside of Google Apps. And since this particular application is free for 1 user, I'm not going to have any trouble just clicking on Add It Now. And I'll add, I'll type in coffeekooks.com when it asks me my domain. And here I get a warning that's more formal but substantively the same as what I just told you in terms of be careful of adding non-Google services to your domain. Make sure you trust the developer. Just like any software that you would use to manage personal information or professional information. I'm going to click on I agree. It requires some additional configuration, which I'll just go ahead and do. I'm going to right-click on this. I know that they happens to want to have information about who I am, and I'll just say Coffee Kooks. And we'll just pretend that we're located in Antarctica and that we're going to use the Tijuana time zone, because why not? I'll click Configure. And now we're done, basically. We can click on Enable the app. And I'll click on Enable the app. And it says up here in this little message, thank you for installing Yendo accounts. Sign in now to get started. I can definitely click here if I want to go ahead. I'm going to right-click on that and go to that in a second. I just opened a little tab for Yendo accounts. Here I have a Yendo accounts settings, and if I look at my dashboard again, I can see that I have Yendo added here. In addition to all of these Google Docs, and I can see that there's a little marketplace note next to it that will indicate to me that it's a marketplace application. And I can see here that the actual URL to get into it is long. It's even longer than what we can see right here. Basically, I might. I could go over here under the settings for Yendo to figure out how to rejigger a more reasonable domain link. But actually, one of the better ways of getting into Yendo from a Google Apps account that I already have, I'm just going to go ahead and load a new window. If I type in mail.coffeekooks.com, it'll pull up my email. If I pull up my email, then what will happen is I will be able to see Yendo alongside of the other links that I've been using, like Start Page, Calendar, Document, Sites. If I click on More, it's actually taking a second to load, but trust me, it would show up right here when I ran through this earlier to try to get it going. I would look here. There it is, Yendo accounts. I just had to reload my browser. So anybody, Yendo accounts is activated for me, so other users aren't necessarily going to see this. I'd have to activate them and pay for Yendo in order to have multiple users live on this. But basically, if I move over here to Yendo, or even better, if I click on this link, then it will take me to Yendo and show me, a view similar with similar data features to what you would be accustomed to if you were operating inside of, QuickBooks or any other general ledger accounting application. I can add an invoice and all that. And this particular application is going to be its own little world. It'll have its own logic and its own design, and the burden will be on me to figure out how to use it. It's not necessarily going to be very much like the Google Apps themselves, because it's not a version. It's not a Google feature of Google Apps. It's merely using Google Apps as a kind of operating system. The way that QuickBooks isn't necessarily going to look like Microsoft Word. But basically, that just gives you an example of how to go about searching for and loading a marketplace application. It's a lot of fun to do. They have a really, really big diversity of stuff that people have put up into the marketplace. It's still kind of an experimental, platform. I don't know if any particular software vendor has gotten rich by putting apps on the Google Apps Marketplace yet. It's possible, but I'm not aware of it if it has in fact happened the way it happened with iOS. But there you go, general overview to Google Apps Marketplace. And now would be another good time for some questions.
Question that just came up in the chat room. What is the difference between publishing to the web, which is allowed in both the Standard and Premier Edition, and making visible to the world, which is only available with the Premier Edition? And they sent a link to a list of the restriction difference, but can you talk on that subject?
Okay, so basically, sure. This is let me pull up Google Documents. The the answers can be slightly different depending on what you happen to be doing, and I'll just say here is a test document, and I'm just calling this a test document. Basically, in order to get to the area that the question describes in the context of a Google document, you can do it from the sort of document listing here. But within an individual document, I can click on sharing settings and publishing to the web. And when I publish it to the web, it in the context of Google Apps gives you the option of allowing only people inside of Coffee Kooks to be able to view it. Now, so one of the differences between publishing things to the web inside of Google Apps versus regular Google is that the web may be is going to be restricted to your domain and people who are logged in. And I can click on Start Publishing. It says below that publishing a doc does not affect its visibility option. And I think that's one of the things that my screen actually isn't large enough to get the bottom of this window here. And that's sort of the other side of the question, which is the difference between publishing it and sharing it with the world. If I click on the Share button, I can see that the default setting for this document is to private. Only I can see it. If you go back to publishing, we can see that publishing a document does not affect its visibility option. So right now its visibility is set only to me. It's set to private. So I can see it if I'm logged in. And if I begin publishing this document, I can use this link to see it. But nobody else in the world can see it. I've published it essentially to the people who are contained within the visibility parameters of my sharing settings, which right now is only me. If I wanted to make it available to everyone in the world, then I could click public on the web. And if I wanted at the domain level to restrict my users' ability to do that, I could do that as well. But it's definitely something worth playing around with and maybe creating some dummy accounts just to make absolutely sure you know who you've published a document to. But there are a lot of options that you can pursue.